Queen's Park Rangers were held to a 0-0 draw at home to Plymouth Argyle last night. So as usual, here is my take on the match from Ellerslie Road. 18th place Plymouth Argyle have been pretty patchy this season, but they do score a lot of goals and they can do teams harm. That said, they are winless away from home this season, and a 4-0 loss away at Leicester on Saturday, although not a game they would have expected to win, was an unwelcome lengthening of that record. I talked in my match preview about the fact that that record could be a good or bad thing for QPR depending on how you look at it, and that it would be trademark QPR to give them their first away win. QPR of course had made it 3 wins on the bounce with a win against Hull at home on Saturday. It was a strong performance with a great starting lineup, so it was quite surprising to see Marty make 3 changes for the team against Plymouth. Jimmy Dunn came in for Jake Clark-Salter, Osman Kakai for Reggie Cannon, and Charlie Kelman for Paul Smith. Now it's understandable given we have 3 games in a week and the very, very hectic December schedule, but I did feel that the starting 11 against Hull is probably the strongest that we can put out, and it was a shame to change a winning team. Players like Jake Clark-Salter and Reggie Cannon, the latter of which didn't actually have a pre-season, are still getting up to fitness though, so I can understand the logic. But those 3 changes did considerably weaken this team, and that was very much felt in the first quarter of the game. We were very, very poor in the first 25 minutes until Argyle's sending off. In fact, they could have been 3-0 up in the first 12 minutes alone. It was all Plymouth really. They were constantly hitting us with pace and width. I was really quite amazed how quick they were in transition. It was almost as if Dizelle had been asked to play a little bit further forward and to the right, and that left just Sam Field in the centre of midfield, who was being consistently bypassed. And we were very, very sloppy. We gave the ball away 3 times in the first 10 minutes. First Sam Field in the first 90 seconds, who pulled his man back and got a yellow card straight away. And then Powell and Kakai were both at it as well, which led to us nearly being punished by 2 close shots from Hardy. Let's have a moan about Kakai now, because I've not had one of those in a while. He's completely incompetent at defending, and God forbid something happens to Cannon long term, because he single-handedly weakens this entire backline. We sorely missed Cannon's composure, as well as Jake Clark-Salter's ability to carry the ball out from the defence. When we did manage to get going a little bit in the first half, I did feel at times that balls over the top or in behind could unlock this Plymouth defence. There were a couple of times where Kelman picked the ball up on the right with some pace, and I couldn't help but feel that Paul Smith would have had a lot of joy there. We somehow weathered the storm of our own mistakes and went unpunished, and soon started to have a couple of chances of our own. In perhaps our best early chances, a ricochet cross fell to Chris Willock inside the box, but his shot was blocked at close range, and so was Elias Chair's in the follow-up. Dan Scarr's red card soon followed on 25 minutes, which by the way was 100% the right decision, and that changed everything after he hatched down Elias Chair on the break. Argyle were forced to sub off Azaz for centre-back Pueglazelo, and now their pace in transition was significantly reduced, and they were pinned back into their own half for the remaining 20 minutes. And it was pretty much all QPR for the rest of the half, which was a relief, because Plymouth looked to me like one of the most dangerous teams that we'd seen at Loftus Road this season, and one that I struggled to see us beating with 11 men. But even when we did start to work the ball, that synergy between players like Chair and Willock just didn't seem to be there last night. They weren't reading each other well. Chair often held onto the ball for a little bit too long. We did have a good chance right at the end of the half when he swept the ball into Kelman, but the keeper and defender somehow kept that out, and Chris Willock was unable to get a no-look shot on target. Now Marty made 3 substitutions at half-time. Lakesh for Kenneth Powell, Elijah Dixon-Bonner for Sam Field, and Reggie Cannon for Kakai. Again, like the starting lineup, these were changes that surprised me. Reggie Cannon improved us considerably almost instantly, but I was quite surprised by the other 2 changes. Field, of course, on a yellow had a poor half, and we did become much more comfortable with moving the ball around the midfield once he was off the pitch. Powell, who struggled defensively out on that left-hand side, was also on a yellow, so I imagine this was about avoiding losing him for Saturday's game. The changes did improve us, and we were dominant in the second half against 10 men, but we just couldn't break them down because they had every man behind the ball. You can't say we didn't try. We had 29 shots with 10 on target, but the quality just wasn't really there last night, in both crosses and shots, and neither of our strikers had a notable effort to really talk about here. Plymouth's impressive defence stayed resolute. They blocked cross after cross, and the balls that did make it into the box produced 3 or 4 good saves from the keeper. Completely fair play to Plymouth because I was impressed with their attack in the first half, and their defence was brilliant in the second. Now Chair was often frustrating in the second half again. He didn't seem to be direct enough in getting the ball into the box, and there were often times when he was dropping very deep into our own half to get onto the ball. But with that said, again, Dykes and Kelman really did offer very little up front yesterday. So I can see sometimes why our midfielders don't release the ball into the box because they've not not seen a run to pick out. Willock also had a pretty quiet display from his recent standards, and with all of these players offered the boil, it became clear to me around 65 minutes that we probably weren't going to get a goal. As the half progressed, Lakesh eventually came off with a head injury. He was bizarrely replaced by Taylor Richards, who once again really did very little of note, and that's a signing that continues to look more puzzling by the day. Frustratingly though, this sub forced Cannon to left back and Dixon Bonner almost to right back, though we mainly played with a back three really. But it just threw our overall shape slightly out of whack. Charlie Kelman would soon make way for Paul Smith, who I did think could have been introduced 10 minutes earlier, but we didn't really utilise him enough. He was getting into a lot of space, but we weren't getting the ball out to him on the right as quick as we should. A real shame, because he did have joy behind the back line a couple of times. Sinclair Armstrong would also come on for Chris Willock with about 10 minutes to go. Again, a change that I thought was quite late, and in honesty, with how good his press was off of the bench against Hull, I do think that he deserves a start over Kelvin. Steve Cook's boot coming off in a challenge against one of the Plymouth forwards, with him then trying to play the ball without a boot on, being pulled back by the ref, just about summed our night up really. Things just weren't quite right. After 8 minutes of added time, the ref blew the whistle for full time. Now, I've been quite surprised by the response to this result. I don't personally think this is the end of the world. We've come a long way in just 7 matches. I was very impressed with Argyle overall, and I do think they're in a bit of a false position. If they managed to pick up a couple of results away from home, they would be comfortably mid-table, and I think we'd be looking at this point as more valuable than people seem to think. It was a fantastic defensive display from their backline, and 11v11, I think we might have lost this one. Hats off to their 2,000 travelling supporters on a Wednesday night as well. I do think this comes down to a little bit too much tinkering from Marty, and the substitutions didn't quite come off in the same way as they had in the last 3 games. But I think we're forgetting how thin this squad really is and lacking in quality. He clearly wants to avoid injuries in this long run over December, and with a few players rested last night, I imagine we're going to be back to a team like the whole starting lineup for Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. For me, last night just really reiterated how much we need a striker in January. Chet and Willock are not going to score in every game, and we just have very little to offer up front. But like I say, this is not a complete disaster. And I don't think this is a match we're going to look back at the end of the season and think that we dropped 2 points. No more so than the points that we dropped against Swansea, Ipswich, Huddersfield or Rotherham under Gaz. Huddersfield, Wednesday and Rotherham all lost in the midweek, so it's a point gain. We're now just 1 point from safety. Marty has closed that gap very quickly, and I think after 3 wins in a row, it's easy to forget that this is still a pretty poor squad. It's another clean sheet, and that's now just 1 loss in 7 matches. An impressive turnaround for a team that had been losing for fun. A win on Saturday at Sheffield Wednesday with a much stronger starting lineup will make this a good week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any thoughts yourself, let me know in the comments. And if you've enjoyed the video, please do subscribe. My Sheffield Wednesday preview will be up tomorrow, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.